Hello, it's Steve back, and great to be back. It's been a couple of days apart from the weekend. I think I missed Thursday and Friday last week. I've done pretty much every day since I started doing these results mastery live sessions, but it was my wife's, let's just say, big birthday. I don't want to say any more than that, because if I did, she'd probably strangle me. So it's great to be back anyway. And today we're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and on YouTube. So really cool that the technology allows me to do this once and then stream it to 3 different places. Today we're going to look at another technology, and that is podcasting. Before I do, I'd just like to sincerely thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and I'm going to try and make sure that you get the best return on investment from your time here. Now, podcasting, let's just give it like an overview of what it is. You probably know, you probably watch lots of podcasts, or rather listen to them. You don't really watch a podcast, do you? But you listen to them. Sometimes you might do, because sometimes they're on YouTube, a little bit like this, I suppose. Anyway, they're just incredibly popular, and yet so many small businesses are not really taking this on board. If I just give you some perspective for me and my podcast, by the way, is called the Results Mastery Podcast. It's available on Amazon, it's available on iTunes, it's available on about 30 different radio stations on their website and so on, and it's available on YouTube, and I post it all over social media, and it's on my website, and so on and so forth. So I get round about 7,000 views every time I do an episode. Every single time, 7,000. Basically that is nowhere near as high as some people, but a lot higher than most people. In your business, how many people are you touching every month, or every week, or every day? I can touch 7,000 people every day if I do a podcast every day. So that hopefully gives you some sort of perspective as to how powerful podcasting is. I like to use an analogy of, years ago when I first started 28 years ago, we had this opportunity to advertise on the TV. That was probably the best place to do it. Probably still is, to be honest. If you had, I don't know, £500,000 or £1 million to throw at something, then, probably TV advertising might be a good place to do that. However, it comes with a problem, doesn't it? And that is, A, it needs a lot of money to get started even, and B, there's a significant amount of risk, because we all know that advertising doesn't always work. And so, those two things, for many small businesses, certainly coaches and advisors, people like that, it's just literally, it ain't gonna happen. So then we look at radio, and we said, well, we could get ourselves onto the radio. And again, there's a reasonable risk, nowhere near as big as TV, but back in the day, you're probably going to spend 5, 6, maybe £10,000 on a radio advertising, getting you on there for 30 seconds every half hour, for 6 weeks or whatever it is. And again, there's a reasonable risk there. It's £10,000, or maybe it's only 3,000, but it's still a reasonable risk, and it may or may not work. We really don't know. We've not got what I call a proof of concept. So whether radio advertising is a good thing to do or not is, again, it's in the balance. I would say that, getting yourself on the radio, getting interviewed and getting to speak on the radio is definitely a good thing. That doesn't cost you anything. And often these days you can do that from the comfort of your own home or office. So What's the modern version of that? Well, the modern version of that is, whilst obviously TV and radio are still valid and great and so on and so forth, the modern version of it is probably YouTube, putting videos onto YouTube, and then podcasts, putting podcasts out there, whether that's on Spotify, on iTunes, on Amazon Music, or wherever you want to put it. So that said, let's just talk about. I hope that's. Let me just say, I hope that's convinced you that you really ought to do it, because as I've said in the title, having a podcast is not a should. It's a must. You really, if you're serious about growing your coaching business, your consultancy business, your advisory business, or literally any business, doesn't matter what industry you're in. I suppose if you're a butcher or a baker or something like that, or a candlestick maker, maybe it's not, is it worth it if you're that? I don't know. Maybe it is. But certainly anybody who's involved in what I'd loosely call the helping industry, I'd say having a podcast is absolutely essential. So two things. There's one thing, and that is setting up your own podcast, doing it yourself, which is definitely a good thing to do. And then the other sort of string to the bow almost is getting yourself on other people's podcasts. Now, I want to be clear here. I don't think you could just, I'll not bother doing it myself. I'll just go on other people's, because I think that if you've not got a podcast, you've not got that credibility. If you came to me and said, I'm interested in being a guest on your podcast, I'd say, oh, fantastic. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about you and what do you do podcasting wise? Oh, I don't do anything. I've not got a podcast. Do I want to interview you? Not sure, because I want to, what I want is to interview you on my podcast, but then be interviewed on your podcast. That's like you coming to me saying, will you promote me for free, Steve? But I'm not doing anything for you. I'm not really that keen on that idea. So, we can both help each other by both, you can come on my podcast, but I want to see your podcast. I want to be invited to be a guest on your podcast. Do you get the idea of that? And I think, sure, you'll get some people who will be happy to have you as a guest. Also depends on your positioning and what you're going to talk about and so on and so forth. But I'm a guest on a podcast soon that's got 250,000 subscribers. And that's costing me nothing. I've got myself on there, and how cool is that? 250,000 people are going to hear from me. Okay, they're not all going to hear, but let's say even if quarter of them listen to the episode that I deliver, then that's a whole range of people who didn't know me, who now have spent some time listening to me, which has got to be a good thing. So number one, I'd say is, yes, go and get yourself on other people's podcasts. But number two, equally important, possibly even more so, is developing your own podcast. Now, how do we do that? Well, I've not got time to tell you in this particular session, but what I can tell you is a little bit about what I do. I use something called Spreaker. Okay, it's like speaker, but with an R in it. Spreaker.com. It costs me something like, I can't remember whether it's £120 or $120, but it's that per year. So, and I can do literally as many podcast episodes as I like. I could do 10 per day if I had the time. But you probably want to be doing, I don't know, at least one per week, and ideally maybe 2 or 3 per week. They can be as short as a 5-minute podcast, as long as maybe, I don't know, an hour. But I do believe in interviewing people. I think that's really good. But I can also do a podcast on my own, just like I'm doing now. I could very easily, in fact, I probably should have done, to be honest, is just picked up my phone here, plugged it in, and set my podcast going while I'm doing this. So I could have been on, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Spreaker, all these 30 odd websites, Spotify, Amazon, and iTunes all together. Why didn't I do that? I forgot. What can I say? But the truth of the matter is, this is a real no-brainer. Now, you don't have to use Spreaker. There's loads of others. Just, go and Google podcast, how to set up my own podcast, or podcast, what would you call it? Hosting platforms or something like that. And you'll find loads of them. Spreaker's fine. It's easy. If I can do it, anybody can do it. That's what I often say to people as far as technology is concerned. But go and do it. Go and set it up. Make sure you do it, professionally. Do it as well as you can. If you need any help, want somebody to help you set it up, we can do it for you for a small fee. But, I think you can do it yourself, dependent on your, technical expertise. Some people are not very good. Others are, pretty competent. But anybody who's reasonably competent can certainly do it themselves. Oh dear, excuse me. So that's it really, I think. I don't think there's anything else I can tell you. Well, I suppose things like, once you've got it, so if you use Spreaker, you set it up, you launch it, you probably do your first episode or maybe first few episodes. Then you've got to link it to all these other places like Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, and all these different websites that you're allowed to do that. So once you've done that, then that all goes out automatically. You then need to link it to your YouTube channel, which again is really, really easy. But then on a regular basis, you need to put your podcasts out on social media. So when you've done an episode, you take the link from that and you share it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you want to share it. Okay, so that is definitely a good tip. You've got to get it out there. It's not like, I'm famous enough so that everybody is going to, as soon as I've done a new podcast, I'm going to get everybody coming to my website to read that podcast. That ain't really going to happen. It does get the thousands of views mainly through Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon Music. So that's the big thing. But there are other opportunities. One final thing I would say that I tend to do is when I'm doing a podcast, I'll record it like I am now live as a video at the same time. So whilst Spotify and iTunes and so on are audio, I can still take that and like, again, get a 2-for-1 deal. I'm recording it on my phone as an audio file, but at the same time, I'm recording it on YouTube as a video file. So I get two versions of the same thing. So well worth doing. Right, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was of value to you. Don't forget to do this every day, Monday to Friday. So please feel free to tune in. Go and connect to me on iTunes. Go and find me. Go and find my podcast and subscribe. Go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to that. And, I do produce some, I think, really good tips and advice, and I hope you do too. Other than that, just leaves me to say thank you again, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.